I also want to thank Jan Webb and Linda Linda from both of them from the Bismarck Art Association Gallery for hosting me Friday evening at the gallery for my exhibit over there. I've got some originals over at the gallery. I hope you stop by and see it. And for allowing me to host that workshop yesterday. Thank you. I had a great time with my 12 students all day yesterday. They think they got a good lesson in learning and burning. We had a good time. But I'm here to talk to you today about my art career in general. I thank all of you for being here. I hope you find it interesting. I've been doing this for 12 years now and making a career out of it. It's got its peaks and valleys, but any artist that, has to go through all that. But it's fun. I love what I do. I can't imagine doing anything else. So I'll just get into it. Basically, just kind of go through this presentation. If you say that someone is playing with fire, you mean that they are doing something dangerous that may result in great harm for them. And generally speaking, that's true. That's pretty much the way it is. But for me, it's, or you can play with fire and discover remarkable truths about yourself. And that's what I find to be true. It's been quite a journey, and like I said, I can't imagine doing anything else. Everything that I do is self-taught. I'll tell you more about that and the process and everything. But generally, I kind of discovered this very by accident on my own, and we'll talk about that too. But to talk about pyrography kind of takes you way back to cavemen days, actually, when men didn't have another way to communicate between each other. They would use the charred remains of sticks and different tools, I guess, that they had, and literally, kind of draw in the caves these pictures that you see that you all probably have heard about. And then we move all the way in approaching the medieval and the Victorian eras. The art form was called poker work, where again, they used tools that were kind of metal pokers and needles and knives and things like that, heated on a kettle or on a stove, and that's how they would make their mark. Like, for instance, on that vessel on the right, very, very old. It dates early 20th century. So it goes way back. It's actually a very ancient art to what we use today. Jumping all the way to today where there are power tools. You can get a cheap one at a hobby store, like I started working with, like the one on the left there, where it kind of plugs in and it heats up to 900 degrees. And it's got variable tips, but it doesn't give you a lot of option as far as trying to do some subtle work. But then, of course, the one on the right is what I use now, and some other folks have it. Some of the students yesterday had it. And there's a lot more you can do with those tools because you can adjust the heat on it, the level of heat that you're putting out, and get some really fine, subtle detail that some folks like to use in their work, like myself. And they come with variable tips, different sizes and shapes of tips, but generally speaking, they're about 1/8 of an inch in diameter for the most part. So they're little tiny tips that you use, and you can do a lot of interesting things with that once you know how to do it. The way I started was very accidentally. I had a dog. She was my everything, and she died way too soon. When that happened, I was obviously grieving very hard. And I needed to find a place for her ashes. I couldn't just let her go. So I looked and I looked and I shopped and I looked around, what's going to be something that means something to me that I can get closure with. Obviously, I still haven't closed. I probably never will. And, to make a personal statement for her. So I finally found an urn, and I thought, okay, it just came out of the blue. I had never thought about doing this before, never thought about it, never ever tried it. And I said, what if I burn her image into the urn and make a personal statement, get some closure, and, pay homage to her. So that's where I started. She's my inspiration, always. Anyway, can't talk about that anymore. Once I started doing it, I honestly just could not stop putting it down. I finally found something in my life that gave me meaning, purpose, and that I knew that I could probably do. And I enjoyed it so much that I just couldn't stop. So I found that I wanted to share it. I wanted to do this for others. If I sold it, it didn't matter. I had to keep doing it. So I found a way that I could continue to do what I knew how to do and what I was actually developing a skill for. It took years. It took a lot of time. So I started working, that's when the internet was available to us all, and I started looking for somebody who could make me beautiful handmade boxes that I would feel good about burning on, and that I could actually maybe give away or sell to others who were going through the same experience that I was going through. So little by little, I developed a relationship with this man. He's such a sweet guy, and he knew what I wanted. I gave him specs, and we worked together, and we were on the phone together all the time. And he sent me maple and walnut boxes and some cherry boxes. He made them all homemade, handmade, with a velvet inside, with a real special touch that he did. And I thought, okay, this is gonna work. This is gonna work great. So I started doing urns for other people because they saw what I did. And little by little, I started kind of developing more skill and more of a reputation, and I was able to get a website together and build this all out, and was able to offer some people who were also grieving, the same kind of closure, the same kind of peace that they got in their life from this. So it gave me a lot, of just internal joy to be able to do this and share this and start actually selling some work. Wasn't making a lot, but I always had a job, and then this kind of was a secondary, almost hobby to me, but I really, really enjoyed the process. So I just kept it going until I kept developing that skill and wasn't really in the market with it. I was just, local, whoever heard about me could come to me and commission me. But then I started doing these local shows. I was very involved with my breed of dog. And so I went to a specialty show, national specialty show for that breed, and started showing my boxes and whatever else I was burning at the time, and the photographs that they came from and how I developed that into this art. And I came away with a couple of commissions from that show. So locally, regionally, nationally, people started recognizing that I could offer this, and it was a nice way to be able to spend some downtime for sure. Then I thought, well, if I can do it on that kind of wood, what other kind of wood can I work on? And I thought, well, maple is maple, and I love working on maple. Maple's a very hard wood, and because it's hard, it burns very slowly. And because it burns very slowly, I can get a lot of detail from that. So I started working exclusively with maple as opposed to the softer woods, which kind of burn real fast, and you never know what kind of clean detail you can get with that. So I kind of stuck with maple for the rest. In fact, to this day, I pretty much exclusively work with maple when I'm working on wood. But that maple was really interesting. It's burl. You're probably all familiar with burl maple, and it's very, very hard wood. And it's hard to work with because you never know what kind of configuration you're going to get. And when you burn on these markings, these beautiful markings that make them so unique, that marking really turns out dark and red. It really pops out. So sometimes it works out nicely, sometimes it doesn't. But the shape is very unique, and you get that nice live, bark around it to kind of frame it. I just found it very intriguing. And then if it's totally smoothly finished, like a glass smooth finish on it, where you can really get a nice smooth burn with it, then you get some really interesting results. So I started working on maple burl, and started looking at these different subjects at these different shows. People would come and say, well, I love that horse that you have up there, but can you do my horse? And I thought, well, of course. So they would give me their photos. I would take the business. I would get commissions. This is how I started building what I built to this day. And then you can look at the shape and everything of the wood, and you can see where a nice break, that horse on the top left, the way its neck and body comes into the side of the wood there. It just looks like such a natural way to represent that animal. Same with the one on the bottom left. These were all commissions from different shows that I attended. People really love the burl and the kind of natural way that it presents itself, and all the markings on it make it really unique. So you'd never see another one, that's for sure. So then I started doing regional shows in addition to local shows. And I did horse shows. This is an Arabian horse specialty show. And I set my work up, and again, same thing. People would come to me and say, hey, can you do this? Can you do my dog? Can you do me with my horse? Yeah, absolutely. So it was a good way to market my work as I started building my career up. And of course, I did this on weekends because I had that 8 to 5 job, 5 days a week. So then I thought, well, this is where the pedal hit the metal, I don't know. And I started thinking to myself, if I really want to go the distance with this thing, why can't it be developed into a fine art? Why does it have to look like a craft? Something that's more predictable that you think of when you think of wood burning tools. Why can't I take this art and raise the level of it and take it to fine art shows, juried fine art shows where where artists compete to be in these shows? And it's very competitive, and it's hard to get in, and not a lot of artists get in. So I thought, well, I'm going to start working on flat maple and see if I can frame these pieces and do something more fine out of it. And that's what I developed. Over a period of time, I gave myself the opportunity to do nothing but just do work for myself to prove that this could be done. And little by little, I kept developing my art and got more detailed about it and more realistic with it. And people kept coming to me and saying, okay, can you do this, can you do that? And so it took years to develop all this. But then I got brave once and finally started burning on this plain maple wood. Everything was still maple up to this point that I was doing. I didn't know to do anything else. I just knew that I loved working and wood burning. So I found good maple sources, and I realized at that point that there were better maple woods than others, and it's all ply. And I thought, well, let me find out what that is. I'll go to these lumber stores, I'll make my calls, I'll go where I have to go to get the best wood possible. And that's what I did, and I started working on spec again, just for shows. To get into these shows was a real feat because these jurors, these show directors, already had a vision of what their shows were. They've been doing this for years. We have oil painters, we have watercolor painters, we have pencil artists, we have pastel artists. I don't know what wood burning is. You need to explain this to me. So I would spend the time writing cover letters and showing photographs of my art, pointing to links of my website, making up stories that, I do this all the time and people just gravitate toward it and I sell out every time, whatever you have to do to market your work. And I did a lot of that and got into these shows. And I'll tell you, as soon as I got there, I had swarms of people around me. What is that? What is that? And I would explain it and we'd talk about it. And I enjoyed that social part of that experience as well. It was always fun to get to explain it. And I would bring my tools with me sometimes to say, see, this is what I used to make this. And, and people were intrigued by it. And I would sell these art at these shows, and I was invited back, and I did pretty well with it. So that's kind of, that took me to showing at shows. You can see how young I am there. But everything was flat. It was fine art next to the, beautiful artist next to me with all the color and all that, But here I was. I finally got into these nationally juried shows and was proud of that. And that was my first show at this particular show, which is called the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I sold $8,000 worth of work in just a few days, and I never expected to sell a thing. So I was really excited. It really charged me it validated the fact that pyrography can, in fact, be a fine art, and that I was capable of doing that and showing it and selling it. That was a real big deal because it started, it just kind of blossomed from there. Every step, every stage that I went through was a really huge validating stepping stone for me to get further and further along. So, it was just a real pleasure being there, and I've done those shows since. I wanted to just kind of take a break and show you a piece in progress that I show a lot to my students. I teach a lot, and I wanted to show you kind of a progression of a work in progress of this bull elk portrait, and kind of show you not working on it per se, but the stages that it went through. I just thought I'd take you through this. I always start with the eye, and then just kind of gravitate from there. I know I'm going fast, but, and about this point, I say that I have the foundation down. It's all the information is down. Now what I need to do is start refining that. You think it might look good enough, but really for me it's not. So that's when I start darkening it in and getting that volume and letting them really pop off the wood. So that was that. And then, 10 years later or so, I found myself in Colorado. That's where I still am. I took everything, my house was, I sold the house within a few months when I decided I needed to come out and be with the animals that I'm actually representing in my art, instead of buying the rights to use them by photographers that took those shots. I thought, that's where I need to be. If I'm gonna do this, and I love doing this, I can't stop doing it, then why not do it right and move to where these animals actually reside, go see them in their natural habitat, photograph them, watch them, observe them, get to understand their behavior, and to the point where I've been able to predict their behavior every time I see them now. And so it's a real pleasure, and now I'm finally where I need to be to do this art full time. And so then I started exploring working on paper, because after all that wood I was working on, I loved it. I loved it so much, but after a certain point, and you get to stagnate after a certain point. You know something so well, it's like, I don't know if I can keep doing this over and over and over again. There's got to be more to this than just working on wood. So I explored paper. This was the first piece on paper I worked on, and it didn't work out because the paper was too thin. And what happens when you burn paper, throw it in the fireplace, you see it. It was too thin, and I thought, well, I'm not gonna settle for that. I've learned everything I know about it, what I know about to this point on my own with the help of nobody. So I took myself back to the art store, the art supply store, and said, you guys, do you have thicker paper than this? And they said, oh yeah, we've got some. It was just watercolor paper, but it's 300 pound, if you know anything about the thickness of watercolor paper. And that's what it took to finally find the right paper where I know it wasn't going to burn through. In fact, when I burn on that thick paper still today, I can turn it around and not even see a hint of smoke or burn. So it works really well. But this was kind of a test. I knew it was going to be a test. Everything I've done to this point is still a test. And then I thought, well, let's also think about other ways to burn, and other materials that I could use to burn, as well as just the burner itself. So I started exploring with torches, butane torch and soldering torches and things like that. And then I thought, well, there must be another way to get a texture on on paper by depicting a rock or a stone or a tree or something like that. And so I got some sand one day. I was hiking with my dogs, quite literally, along a creek, and I saw the sand, and I thought, I'm gonna bottle some of that up. And I took it home and I threw it on the paper. You're not gonna, you can't burn sand like glass. So I took out my torch, I sprinkled the sand around, made sure I had foil underneath just in case, and just started burning and got some really interesting textural effects from it. And that was a seal, obviously, that I saw. I finally got all my reference myself. I didn't have to lean and rely on anybody else except for myself. Everything was going to be, if I burned it, I was going to be the one who saw that in nature and depict it myself. And then I started working more with paper. And then I thought, well, unlike the wood, where if you find the right finish to put on top of wood, you don't need to really put glass over it. You just show it, and it makes it a more personal experience with whoever's looking at it, whether it's a gallery or a show or whatever. And I thought, well, I don't want to put my paper behind glass if I don't have to. And I thought, well, I have to, because how else is paper going to be protected? Even if I spray it, it still has to be behind glass. But the galleries wouldn't accept it. I started approaching a lot of galleries at all this time and started working with them, and they would literally turn you away if your medium required to be protected with glass. So I thought, all right, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I happened to go out at this show. I was at a gallery show that was a small group gallery show in Scottsdale, Arizona. I went down there, and I also happened to go by another gallery where I saw somebody working in watercolor. Well, watercolor has to go behind glass. How can it not? I mean, it's very vulnerable and all that. And so the artist happened to be there, and I looked at it, and I kept walking, and I thought, wait a second, that was watercolor and he didn't put it behind glass. And I went in reverse and I talked to him for quite a while and I said, how did you do that? I've got a medium I don't want to put behind glass. And he told me exactly what he did and was gracious enough to be open about it. And then I started working with that. And then I started tweaking that process a little bit and talking to manufacturers about different finishes and what I might be able to do to secure my work so it didn't have to go behind glass. And I finally got to the point where I figured that out. And, you know, that may change in another couple of years. They might come up with something new that I need to discover that might work even better. But the things that I've learned to this point, I've gotten there because I've made it happen myself. I've talked to these people. I talk to artists. If I want something bad enough, I'm not going to stop till I get there. It's just a matter of finding who to talk to and getting there. So I never say never. It never happens to me. That's just the way I am. So I figured it out and got it so that I didn't have to use glass anymore. But now I'm kind of getting tired of, you know, burning just on paper and wood. There's got to be more to it. How do I soften the look of this burn that's so highly detailed and so, you know, just tight and detailed? And I thought, well, I want to soften it up. Well, the tools can't get any softer because they're metal tips and you can't soften that up. And I talked with them about this anyway, and they said, no, we really can't do that. So I thought, well, I don't want to add color, but how can I get, you know, color without color, but soften up the piece? That's all I want to try to do. Well, you think of these things, they just, you know, that's why I'm up all night, just my head's turning all the time because I can't stop thinking about different ways to do things. You know, if you're going to do this, just do it and be a pioneer and get into it and figure these things and explore. And it's the discovery of things that makes it so fun. Playing with fire, right? That's what I do. So I thought, well, let me try coffee. I don't know where this idea, I think I started with teas and different stains and things like that, and it all led me to coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I love the smell of it. So when it's boiling on my stove, I get all excited. And then I thought, well, all right, let's try some coffee. So I did. I did these donkeys. Again, I found these donkeys at a nearby ranch, and I was like a stalker. I kept driving by this ranch because I saw the donkeys, but I never saw anybody outside with them. I thought, I'm just going to keep going back and forth until I find somebody. And she finally appeared one day, and I drove right into her driveway. And I said, hi, I'm kind of a neighbor. I live about 20 minutes from here. You don't know me. I'm sorry. She said, hey, you want to see my donkeys? I thought, that's why I'm here. Yes, I would love to. She said, sure, you can photograph them. And that's how I got the donkeys. That's what you have to do if you want to get somewhere, playing with fire. And so I boiled my coffee. I thought, I want to soften these guys up a little bit. I don't want to leave the background just stark white. It's just too stark. And I thought, all right, well, let's try the coffee. I'll get some sponges. I'll boil my coffee, and I just kind of sponged the background so carefully that you can really barely see it because I was too scared. You know, I was getting my feet wet in this coffee. So that's what I came up with. It's a mother and a son. And then I thought, yeah, I kind of like the way that looked. Let me just try it again and see where this thing goes. And so I got a little bit more bold with the coffee and started kind of sponging the background a little bit. That's as much as I was able to do at that point. It's little baby steps with me. Playing with fire is a big deal. You want to do it slowly. And then I thought, all right, color, let's just go for it. Let's just put your fears and insecurities aside. Let's just jump right in. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it doesn't work out, that means I've burned an entire piece before I apply the color, and then it's all that time wasted, but it's a good lesson learned, so I was willing to throw myself into that fire. And, you know, I came up with this piece. I saw these roosters at a friend's house, and they allowed me to come by and photograph for about an hour. I was sitting on the grass with them, and they would do their thing, and it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of photographs. And so this one ended up in the Birds and Art exhibition. If you're familiar with that at all, it's probably one of the most noted, highly recognized, acclaimed wildlife bird art exhibit that there is annually. In fact, they just had it, and everybody's leaving today. The artists who got into it are just leaving today. So that just happened. It happens once a year, and this happened to get into it. So it was a really big deal for that to get recognized for what it was. I worked on, just as an aside, I was also playing with different types of color because I had no idea what would happen, how it would react to the paper, and then if I could put a finish on it and what was going to happen with it. So for me, a lot of this was just, all of it was experimentation where I really wasn't sure what to expect. So I burned the rooster and the hen. I burned it with my little cute little sand effect. I put that on the bottom for their ground. And then I thought, okay, let's add some color to this. Let's just go for it and add some color to this. So I ended up using watercolor paper. You're going to use watercolor paint. Makes sense. And I couldn't find that further from the truth, because what happened as I was applying the finish, by the way, before I even applied a finish on this piece, I had actually submitted it for the Birds and Art exhibition, and it was accepted. So I was committed, and it was a very important exhibition. You can't back out of it. It is what it is. So I'm sitting there one day, my dogs are on the couch kind of sleeping and watching me, and I'm just working away. And I tried to apply that finish. I put a fixative on top of the paper and on top of the paint, the watercolor paint. And I don't know if they even know this story, so if they ever hear it or see it, they're going to be as shocked as I am still thinking about it. But I put the fixative on it, and it seemed to be fine. I thought, well, this is all a first. I should have experimented with something else before going the distance with this piece. And then I started putting a varnish on it. Well, the varnish was the worst thing in the world. All my colors started moving around the paper. The reds turned into pink. Everything was scattered all over the place, and it looked like a hot mess. I run to the kitchen. I'm grabbing paper and towels and water, and I'm rushing back in. And by then, my dogs are like, okay, we've seen this before. We're just going to stay where we are. Don't worry about us. We're fine. They were fine, and I just was like yelling and screaming and cursing, just running around the house with water falling all over the place and towels, all the way from the kitchen into the living room. And I'm mopping it up. I'm just mopping up the mess. And somehow I was able to contain the color and get it back where it needed to be and save the piece and then show it. But wow. Talking about playing with fire, I mean, that's as bad as it gets, because you don't want to, just as word to the wise, practice before you do something epic and it gets accepted into this amazing art show that hardly anybody gets into, that you're just so excited to be in. Don't experiment on that particular piece. But anyway, it all turned out, and but lesson learned. Either get a different finish or figure out a new paint or something like that. So I did. I experimented with paint and made sure that I experimented a whole lot before I put more time into finishing pieces. And I ended up with acrylic. Acrylic worked perfectly for that, for my taste, for what I needed to show. And you could thin it out and make it look like watercolor, so it all looked the same. And then it accepted a varnish on top of it. So now I don't have to put glass on my work. I don't have to worry about the paint spreading. It all worked out. So I started using more color in my art as we went along. And I was really getting away from the wood, so much so that I really loved working on paper, and I loved being able to experiment with that substrate because it accepted so many other types of things you can do with it than you can with wood. So again, I took the photos. You can see that I burn all my images until they're completely finished, absolutely completely finished, and that's when I start thinking about color. So in this case, I just thought, well, let me just see what a little bit of kind of a wash does over this work. It really wasn't painted. It's acrylic paint, but I didn't paint. I just kind of washed it over that horse. And I really liked the way it turned out, and it sold right away. And it kind of validated the fact that color does need to be in art, because it does make more of a statement. It's more dramatic. People expect to see color. I was lucky to sell what I did just with a burn on wood, because there's not a lot to it. I mean, yeah, it takes a long time to do. It's very meticulous and it's very nice, but you have to find that certain person that is okay with just that and not having a bunch of color in their house on their walls. So I started working more with color, and this is just some more experimentation with color. I get into the field. I love seeing wild animals, and these wild horses are in Wyoming, and I went to visit them a couple of times now and just got a lot of different shots. This little baby was trying to wake up its mom, who just kept, shoving it away, and he was very insistent. And finally, he woke her up, and I just got a lot of series of shots with that. But I really like this one because he had his whole mouth around her neck, and you can just kind of see the behavior there, and I really love that. And just added a hint of color and coffee, actually, to this piece, just for fun. And then, of course, this one, too. This one's hanging up at the gallery right now. If you want to go see that in person, it's up there. It's a yellow-headed blackbird. I had never seen one until I moved to Colorado, and they migrate, and they have their babies, and they move out. And so that was a thrill to get to see them. Just really amazing birds. And then, like I said, I burn my images until it's completely finished. And here I had these wild horses and the scene with the blue heron. And I thought, you know what, Julie, just go hog wild and just add color, and that's what I did. And I don't think anybody can deny that that's green up there. And that's more, it's really what you see now, more than anything else. You see the green first, and you kind of go from there. But I think it's a pretty neat scene, the reflection and all that. And but it just explains where I was, very timid with color until, like, okay, just forget all your fears, just jump into the fire. And like I said, I love being in the field. I love being in the field probably more than anything else I do. Once I moved to Colorado, I was addicted. And everywhere I went, I was taking photos. I didn't go anywhere without my camera. I upped the camera equipment and got better and better at what I was doing. And finally, I just got out there and started, reaching out and contacting ranch owners and different, places. And I made sure that I could get in with the purpose that I had, and I'll send you a print of whatever I do, because I want to thank you, for your time and coming here and letting me, allowing me to come here on your ranch and all. So you get to know these animals. These Texas Longhorn are actually very sweet animals. They're very friendly, and so you get out there with them and you can just sit with them and pet them and feed them if you want. You have to be careful because their eyes are on the side of their head, so they don't really see you if you're coming right at them, and you can get hit in the eye and lose a limb or an eye right away with those horns. So, but they get to know you too, and they know that you're not a threat, and you can sit there and take as many photos as you want. I invite friends to come with me. I have a special ranch that I go to. And then I was up 14,000 feet up. We have Mount Evans near where I live, where the mountain goats are. And it's a whole different atmosphere. It's a whole different climate. And I was sitting there. I went with a friend. He was taking the picture of me from far away with his camera. And I thought, well, I'll be over here. You stay there. And I bet between the two of us, we get some phenomenal shots. And we did. But what I did not know what was going to happen, because I like to be more eye level with my animals to get them at that angle. It makes for better art. And I thought, well, I'll be over here sitting on this ledge. And he said, okay, I'll be back here. And I did. The animals were far enough away that I wasn't any kind of threat to them. But they were extremely trusting and friendly, and came very, very close. There was a mother and 4 lambs. And I just sat there and I watched them as they came closer and closer. And I thought, well, I don't think they're going to hurt me. They're just kind of looking real curious at me, And I'm looking at them, and finally I can't focus anymore because my camera's too close, but I'm just enjoying the whole experience. All I wanted to do was reach out and just pet one, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. And of course, that's not something you do anyway in the wild, but they just came closer, and I got some phenomenal shots, just eye-to-eye shots, very trusting, and I was very, very excited about that shoot. It's one of those experiences that you just can't ever forget. And then, of course, out at Yellowstone with the bison, finding bison in the wild is pretty easy if you know where to find them, and that was fun. And then just at Rocky Mountain National Park where I live, you get out there and you get the bull elk and the elk in rut. They're in rut right now, which is fun, and the sunshine on their antlers is always fun. And the best thing about being out in the field is then I get to produce this art and then share it and then talk about it. People love the stories that I share when I can say myself that I was out in the field and I saw these animals and I saw it doing this or I saw it doing that, and then I saw them acting like this or whatever. People are intrigued by that. I love the woman on the top right up there. She's just way into my story. And it's true. And that, again, was at Birds and Art, that piece there that I called the Ivy League was a tree that I took photos of, and then the nuthatches, and then I kind of composed it and put it together. And the owls on the left-hand side, I saw all last summer raising their owls and their owlets, and that was a lot of fun. I can talk about a lot of stories with that, but it's sharing the experience that I get a lot of joy from. That's as much fun for me as doing anything else that I do. Composing. So a lot of what I do in the field when I'm out there is getting a ton of photographs, and I never know what a piece is going to look like until I get on my computer and look at my photographs, and I think, well, that bull elk would look really amazing with these magpies, because the magpies and the bull elk and all the elk, they have a symbiotic relationship. They come and eat the insects and the mites off of these animals, whether they're bison or elk or moose or whatever, and they clean them up and keep them from being diseased. So it's a win-win for both of them. Well, that bull elk was just scratching his back, and I just happened to get a picture of him doing that, for a while. And I thought, I've got pictures of magpies. I bet they do land on their antlers as much as their backs and everything else. So I'm going to put a little story together here and put it down and get it down and burn it, and then I'm going to share it, And that's a lot of fun. That's the fun of looking at your photos. When you come back, you think, oh, I think I know what I can do with that. And that's all I do anymore. This is just an example. And then another story was I went down and took a photo workshop down in western Texas at a ranch, at a traditional working ranch. Was there all day with these guys, all day until the dark in the morning until dark at night. And we had our breakfast together and everything. Well, these guys started getting ready for their ride. This is actually in the morning when they were starting to get their horses and get their gear on and get everything ready for their cattle drive. So, but what I did with it was I combined these guys together, made a piece, and instead of in the morning, I thought, well, that looks like an evening piece. I want to do something with the paint to kind of make it look like a sunset sort of scene. So I called it Calling It a Day, where these guys are kind of turning it in, turning in for the evening. And that sold at the last show I was at, so I was happy about that. You never know until you're really composing, until you compose and get these things figured out when you start seeing a story emerge. It's a lot of fun. And here's another example. This piece that I produced from these photographs are up at the gallery right now. I call it Method to the Madness. If you've ever hunted with bird dogs, you know that the pheasant and all those guys can cause chaos all around these dogs, and the dogs have to remain perfectly still through the shot until they're commanded to fetch the bird and bring it back. Well, that's kind of what was going on here. I saw these, the one here right next to me, Raisin, this little girl right here, was my dog. I'm very proud of her. She was a great bird dog. The one on the left, on the top left, is somebody else's dog, but she allowed me to use that in my art. It's rare when I reach out to somebody and say, hey, can I use that subject? But when I see something too compelling not to do, I'll go ahead and reach out. All it takes is one time to ask, and they can either say yes or no. And then, of course, the pheasant reference as well, and I put it all together and put a story together. I don't know. There's something about bird dogs, obviously, that I love. I've had them for a long, long time, and putting a scene like this together just was a really fun experience for me. All right, so, and then there's, like I said before, commissions. This is all on, a lot of people come when they ask for commission, when they commission me to do work. I find it fascinating that they all want it on wood, which I'm happy to do. I like switching back and forth. It keeps things interesting anyway. But this particular horse came from a woman who lives, I believe, in Montana, and this is her third commission that she asked me to do. She wanted the bridle off, and I thought, well, oh my God, okay, I'll try to do that. And so I did. And, I just kind of manufactured what was underneath that thing, but I got it done, and she was happy with it. And I darkened in the background, and I think that way that the animal actually pops out more dramatic kind of scene. And this one was interesting. A gentleman approached me to do a commission for a couple that he knew. And so he said, but it has to be an Angus. It has to be an Angus calf. And I thought, well, that's one thing I don't have. And I haven't even explored that out here in Colorado. So what do? You get online, you find a ranch hopefully nearby, which I did, a half hour away. I told them who I was and what I was trying to do, and they said, yeah, come on by, we've got calves over here. And I thought, I went the next morning, and then I went that evening too, making sure that I got the right light and that I got the right animal and I got the right pose. I gave him some choices of calves to choose from. He chose that one, and I was able to do kind of a half calf kind of thing, and that's what I ended up with. And again, it's on wood. So that was a lot of fun to do. If I can take the reference, if I can take the photos of these animals, it excites me more to do a commission. But either way, it's great. And again, this one was interesting too, because this dog, this woman got in touch with me. She had seen me written up in a magazine, and she kept that magazine for years. And then she moved to Estes Park, Colorado, less than an hour away from where I live. And she said, I want you to do a commission as a surprise for my husband for his birthday coming up in November, December, whatever it was. I said, sure. And it was still summertime, so we had a lot of time to figure this out. And she sent me some photos, like most people do, in an email. And if it's not conducive enough, I'll let them know. I said, oh, I can do this, but it's not going to be as great as it can be. Can you get some more photographs? And she sent me more. And I said, it's just, it's not really moving me. I said, you know what, you're less than an hour away. How about if I bring my young dog, my young Vizsla, and this guy's young at the time too. They were about the same age, like a little over a year old, and they could just run themselves out crazy, and he'll settle down, and I can get some nice poses of him. She thought, yes, please come. So I brought my camera, I brought my dog, and up we went, and had a great time together. He got totally exhausted and was lying around, and I got some great shots of him, and that's what we ended up with. And the husband was so surprised and thrilled. That's what I love about that kind of thing, is bringing happiness to other people. I do have licensing agreements too. This is one example where they wanted me to do, and these two originals on the top left and right are actually hanging up at the gallery right now too, again on wood. An architectural design firm called me one morning when I was working, and a woman called and said, I know I've been following your art around, and I wondered if we could talk about doing a deal where we can use two originals of yours and hang them up in a new hotel that's going up in Calgary, Canada. They were building a Residence Inn, and I think it was 15 floors, 15 stories high. This is what we want to do with it. We want to go ahead and enlarge it like 5 feet by 5 feet and print it on metal and have that near each elevator on each floor, showing the numbers of the floors and where the rooms are. I said, oh my gosh, yeah, let's talk about that. So it happened, and I have got the original still. They just wanted the file, and we came up with a licensing, a contract that was agreeable to us both, and they're using it for that purpose. And you can see that it's kind of divided in 4 pieces, which is kind of a neat thing to do. And it was able to, the originals are like, I don't know, 19 by 22 by 19 or 14 or 15 or something like that. And that's the size of the originals, and that's what they did with it. So it was just a really exciting project. I'm going to hopefully look forward to more of those. And then, of course, I've been written up a whole lot, and not to brag, but that's what happens when you have a unique art and you get to share it and people find out about you, and you also start knocking on doors too. You don't get afraid to call the publisher of a magazine because you need people to see this, and you want the work, you need the money, so it's all good. Gray Sporting Journal, the back cover I've been on 3 times now. That's quite an honor, and just written up as features in other magazines and publications. And then the newest publication that's just out now is a really important one. I just got it in the mail. In fact, it's so heavy I couldn't bring it with me on the plane. I don't know what it weighs. It feels like 30 pounds. It's probably about 10 or so pounds. And it's written by a man who owns and operates a woodworking school out in Indiana called Mark Adams School of Woodworking, if anybody knows that. I also teach over there. And they're very world famous. They bring in instructors and students from literally all over the world. They're very well known. It's a big, big school. And he invited me to be a part of this book that he was putting together, this coffee table book. It's 11 by 11 inches, and it's big, and there are 30 artists and artisans that he features in this book, in this edition. And we each got 8 pages, so it is a big deal, and I wanted you to know about that. In case you visit my website or whatever, you can find out more about getting that. It's a wonderful book. I just got mine in the mail, and I won't even uncover it out of its plastic and look through the pages without white gloves on. That's how much I treasure it. I know, it's crazy. Workshops, I do workshops. I love doing workshops because I love to be able to share and inspire the way that I did for myself and be able to carry that forward and let people learn and do and get as far as they want with it. That means everything to me. So I do hold workshops. I sometimes get hosted by other facilities like this weekend, but I also conduct my own in the Rocky Mountains where we do kind of a workshop/retreat where people work all day long on their burnings for 4 days. It's a 4-day workshop, both in the spring and fall. I've got a fall one coming up here in about a month now, and there's still room. And then I also take them on retreats. Right next to us is Rocky Mountain National Park. It's only literally a couple of miles away. And we go there very early in the morning, and that's where you see the animals. It's very, very early in the morning, right when the sun's coming up, and then they kind of hide all day long, and then you can go back in the evening and hope to see them again. But these are all literally taken from workshops that I've done. These animals are actual shots that I've taken myself during the workshops. So we do see all these animals. The coyotes, the bears, the moose, the elk, of course, and bighorn sheep, and there's some happy faces up there on the top left. And that's pretty much it. So I invite you to be as inspired as I was with my dogs. You can't get away from these faces. And then I hope we have time for some questions. I just saw these guys. I watched them for a couple of months, and I could not get enough. I literally didn't work for 2 months because I was at every single morning and evening watching these babies. Aren't they something? I'm sure I'm going to burn him. So I hope we have a little bit of time left, if it's okay, Eric. And if you have any questions at all. I know I talked fast, and there's a lot more to my life and career than all this, but this is it. Thank you.